Welcome aboard, applicants. I thought we'd begin with the first year law students exam, June 2011, question number 3. As with all essay questions, let's begin with the call of the question. The call says, can buyer prevail in a breach of contract action against seller? We know what our area of law is, contract law, so highlighting that. Let's start answering our call here. Okay, so buyer v. seller. Contract formation, third-party rights. We have covenants, conditions, excuses, discharge duty to perform, breach of contract, and remedies. Okay, let's start reading our question now. Buyer wished to upgrade its 5,000 lighting fixtures to meet new energy conservation standards, but had been unable to find comparable lighting elements. Buyer wrote to seller explaining its needs. On July 1st, now this buyer writing to seller explaining its needs, we're gonna come back to that here in a minute. Now on July 1st, seller emailed buyer, we believe we can manufacture the lighting elements that you require. We are prepared to supply 5,000 at $100 each. We understand that this is much more than you anticipated paying, but the redesign to meet your specifications will not be easy. We need to do this deal by September 1st. I'm going to sort of point this out here. September 1st, 5,000, $100 each. What is it that the subject matter is? We're talking about lighting fixtures. Okay. Okay, then if not, we will have to turn our attention elsewhere. Buyer was relieved that it would not need to replace its existing lighting fixtures. Buyer felt sufficiently confident that it would be able to secure funding for the purchase, so it terminated ongoing negotiations with manufacturers for replacements. So it terminated ongoing negotiations. I want to make sure to point that out. Now, and also we're talking about twice now, need has been pointed out here. That you require up here was pointed out. So we want to make sure to point out these particular facts because this will help in our issue spotting. Now on August 1st, buyer received notice that funds would be available. It immediately attempted to email seller, we got the money, we have a deal. Seller did not, however, receive the message because buyer sent it to the wrong email address. Okay. So on August 10th, seller emailed buyer, we have reconsidered. Because of new commitments, we will not be able to supply the lighting elements as planned. Sorry. Because its computer was down on August 10th and 11th, buyer was unaware of seller's August 10th email message. On August 12th, buyer telephoned seller and the following exchange ensued. Buyer, our computers have been down for a couple of days, but we assumed you got our message. Our people are real excited about this. Seller, what message? And we told you 2 days ago we could not do the lighting elements. Seller has refused to supply the lighting elements. It would be very difficult and expensive for buyer to acquire replacement lighting fixtures. Okay, so let's talk now about what would establish our contract formation here. So we have applicable law. Because we're not dealing technically with service installations, we're dealing with the purchase of 5,000 lighting fixtures. See, what we're in here, it didn't say that it's to supply 5,000 at $100. It's not to supply the purchase and installations, just to supply the 5,000 lighting fixtures, which would be considered a good under the Uniform Commercial Code. So that's what we want to put down. And because we're talking about goods here, sale of goods, okay? And we're talking about merchants. Are both parties merchants? One party merchant, we'll take a look here. We're talking about buyer buying 5,000 lighting fixtures, presumably a merchant, but maybe not. Seller, what does it say about seller? Right here, seller, email seller. We can manufacture the lighting elements. So they probably regularly deal with goods of the kind, which would be the lighting fixtures. But it is up in the air as to whether it's a close call as to whether buyer is a merchant. So at least seller is a merchant. And buyer may not be a merchant. Okay, so now under contract formation, valid contract contains enforceable offer, acceptance consideration without applicable defense to contract formation. So offer here, the first aspect, first communication after offer, present manifestation of intent to be bound, communicated, containing certain definite terms communicated to an offeree. Now remember here, we're talking about this particular July 1st communication. But remember, what is it that buyer wrote to seller explaining its needs? I would say at this point, that's a preliminary negotiation. Okay, now down here under offer, and I would say the offer took place, and this would be the July 1st email. This is seller's July 1st email. Why? Because it contained the necessary offer terms of our elements of intent to be bound, the certain and definite terms, and was it communicated to the offeree? This in this case, it would be buyer. Now, under the terms, do we have quantity, time, interested parties, price, and do we have subject matter? Well, we know the subject matter is going to be lighting elements. Quantity, we know that, 5,000. Time for performance, I believe we established that was September 1st. Interested parties, this would be buyer, seller. Price, we know that it's going to be $100 per fixture. Oh, $100 here. Per, I believe it was per element. Each. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. Okay, now so definite terms here, definite certain terms. So I would say, without a doubt, we have an offer communicated by seller on July 1st. Now, buyer was relieved. Now, after this, buyer was relieved. Oh, we don't want to run by something in acceptance too, that there was a merchant's firm offer put in here, but we'll come back to that. Buyer was relieved that it would not need to replace the existing lighting fixtures. Buyer felt sufficiently confident that it would be able to secure funding for the purchase, so it terminated ongoing negotiations with manufacturers for replacement lighting fixtures. But we want to make sure here too that we're pointing out up underneath our offer that we're dealing with requirements. Glad we read this again. Requirements and outputs contracts. Okay, right here. Okay, then now down here under acceptance. Thank you for your patience. Acceptance, unequivocal assent to terms of the offer in the method invited by the offer. Now down here, we want to make sure to point out that we have irrevocable offer, detrimental reliance. And that was when seller, after receiving, buyer after receiving seller's email, terminated ongoing negotiations with manufacturers for replacement lighting fixtures. Okay, that takes care of that. Now on August 1st, buyer received notice that funds would be available. Okay. It immediately attempted to email seller. We got the money. We have a deal. Seller did. Okay, now this is the August 1st acceptance here. Now remember, what would this be considered? I believe under this aspect, it might be considered the mailbox rule. August 1st email. Let's see here. Okay. This would be buyer's August 1st email. Now, as to this, was this received. Or actually, the argument can be made is it upon dispatch? But remember here, it's proper dispatch. Okay, right here is where the sticking point is. Right here, seller did not, however, receive the message because why? Wrong email address. So we want to make sure to point that out. That this, even though the mailbox rule would make the acceptance effective upon proper dispatch, the sticking point is that proper dispatch. Wrong email address. Excellent. Okay. Excellent that we spotted that. Okay, now down here. Okay, now right here on August 10th, seller emailed buyer. We have reconsidered because of the new commitments. We will not be able to supply the elements as planned. Sorry. Now, August 10th is this would be the revocation. Seller's August 10th email. Now, it was not received though. Remember, revocations to be effective have to be received. Now down here, it was not, and it says here, because the computer was down on August 10th and 11th, buyer was unaware of seller's August 10th email message. So we talked about the computers being down on August 10th and 11th. So we got receipt here as being a problem. Computers were down. Okay, and we want to make sure to note that it was buyer's computers were down. Okay, now remember we talked about this, the irrevocable offer though. Now we also don't want to run by this too quickly too, because on our irrevocable offer we have merchants firm offer, and this would be the aspect of it being held open until September 1st. Okay, remember the offer was made this July, so July, August, September. So yeah, 3 months. Remember, time stated or reasonable time, neither to exceed 3 months. Do we have a merchant here? Yes. Would there be a signature? Yes, per the email, the electronic signature aspect. And then 3, does it go beyond 3 months? No, it doesn't. Now, here we go. Just a minute. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your patience, Kitty. Okay. Now, after revocation, come up here, and on August 12th, though, buyer, telephone seller, and the following exchange ensued. So we got buyer's telephone conversation, and this would be August 12th, by the way. Okay. Oh, there it is. Let's come back up here and find out what happened. Okay, now buyer's telephone. Now remember, acceptance has been ineffective, and the revocation has been ineffective. Okay, now buyer says our computers have been down for a couple of days, but we assume you got our message. Our people are really excited about this. Okay, now does this sound like unequivocal assent? Okay, it's possible. Is it? Well, because all they're saying here is that our computers have been down for a couple of days. Okay. We assume you got our message. Okay. Our people are really excited about this. It's questionable as to whether they accepted it or not, but assuming that they do, that this communication does represent an unequivocal assent to the terms of the offer, the buyer's communication coming first before seller would represent the acceptance. Okay. Now seller is going to say though, what message? And we told you 2 days ago we could not do the lighting elements. This would be the another revocation by seller. Okay, so we got buyer's telephone conversation, and I would say this would be the question mark as to acceptance here. Okay, question mark Now here's the other thing too. August 12th, seller's revocation. Here's the kicker on this one. Okay, when this is August 12th, right? Technically, by the fact that the merchant's firm offer, remember, has to be held open with good faith, which is the aspect here that okay, we're dealing with a merchant, yes, good faith, yes, signature of the merchant, and that it doesn't go beyond 3 months. We already talked about that. So the offer remains open until September 1st, even though seller revoked. Here is this would be considered an ineffective revocation. Because the seller's firm offer holds the offer open for acceptance by the buyer till September 1st. Now, coming down here after that, seller has refused to supply the lighting elements. Okay, right there we have an anticipatory repudiation. And then down here, after anticipatory repudiation, we have it would be very difficult and expensive for buyer to acquire replacement lighting fixtures. This is the aspect about the mitigation of damages aspect. So we got, okay, anticipatory repudiation, breach of contract. Okay, this would be the perfect tender rule because we're dealing with a one shipment aspect. And I would argue that this again would be a material breach. Okay, and then under remedies, make sure that there's a mitigation of damages. We talked about that being that it'd be very expensive for buyer to find replacement lighting fixtures. Let's take a look at also too that I'd also cover damages as well for that. And now consequential damages would be a discussable point here, but it wasn't foreseeable at time of contract information, so it might not be available. Make sure to put in the Hadley v. Baxendale. Okay, and then incidental damages. Now the other aspect is a small discussion on specific performance, because we're dealing with possibly unique goods in that there's special lighting fixtures. And I think that's through a conclusion at the tail end here, and we got this thing. Okay, now we'll come down here doing our second essay question. Coming down to our page here. Get to another page here. Thank you for your patience. Okay, now General Bar, July 2010, question number 1. That's all of our essay questions. We go into the call to question. Under what theory or theories, if any, might patron bring an action for damages against homeowner, burglar, or cinema? Okay, so let's put that down right now. Patron v. homeowner, patron v. burglar, and patron v. cinema. Okay. Now, let's read our question. Homeowner kept a handgun on his bedside table in order to protect himself against intruders. A statute, I want to point out, okay, we're dealing with a statute here, provides that all firearms must be stored in a secure container that is fully enclosed and locked. Make sure to point that out there. Burglar broke into homeowner's house while homeowner was out and stole the handgun. Burglar subsequently used the handgun in an attack on patron in a parking lot belonging to cinema. Patron had just exited cinema around midnight after viewing a late movie. During the attack, burglar approached patron and demanded that she hand over her purse. Patron refused. Burglar drew the handgun, pointed at patron, and stated, "You made me mad, so now I'm going to shoot you." Patron fainted out of shock and suffered a concussion. Burglar took her purse and fled. but was later apprehended by the police. Cinema had been aware of several previous attacks on its customers in the parking lot at midnight or at night during the past several years, but provided no lighting or security guard. Okay, so right here, we can start to see that, okay, we're dealing with torts here. And remember our overall shopping list to keep in mind: intentional torts, negligence, strict liability, products liability, other torts, and third-party issues. Okay. Now, right here, under homeowner, this is technically how the burglar got access to the firearm in the first place. Would be considered a negligence claim. So we throw down negligence, duty, and then we would argue breach of duty. Remember, under duty, though, we want to point out the aspect about negligence per se, because this is where the statute comes into play. And then breach of duty would be the risk versus utility argument. Then down here under actual cause, we're going to throw in the but-for test and possibly the substantial factor. Well, let me come back here and say but for at this point. Okay, now proximate cause. We want to argue first of all under proximate cause foreseeability, and we want to throw in intervening events. Okay. After that, we're gonna come down here and talk about damages. And remember, under damages, we're going to throw in general damages and special damages. Okay, now, after that, we're going to throw in defenses. For defenses, we're going to talk about contributory negligence and comparative negligence. What pure and modified. And then want to talk too about last clear chance. Let's see here. There we go. And this would be an argument flowing from patron to homeowner here. Okay, now then assumption of the risk. And then we also want to throw in a other, I believe it would be a third party kind of tort, and that would be the aspect concerning joint and several liability, or excuse me, yeah. Contribution, indemnification. Okay. So we're going to copy and paste this down on it below real quick. Underneath burglar. Okay, now the other aspect we want to talk to you about burglar 2 is we have, I believe, an intentional tort brought up here with burglar. Burglar subsequently used a handgun in an attack on patron in a parking lot belonging to cinema. Patron had just exited cinema around midnight after viewing a late movie. During the attack, burglar approached patron and demanded that she hand over her purse. So at that point, I would say that we have an assault here. Now, also at this point too, and demanded that she hand over money. Patron refused. Burglar drew the handgun, pointed at patron, and stated, "You made me mad, so now I'm going to shoot you." Patron fainted out of shock and suffered a concussion. So shock, I would argue that it would be intentional infliction of emotional distress. And a battery because of the concussion aspect. Okay, then down here, I don't know if I would argue the negligence. I don't think I would argue negligence for burglar, but I would argue negligence for cinema. So we want to make sure here that down here, right here, cut that. Okay, we'll throw in defenses here. And then remedies. Trespass to chattel. Oh, interesting argument there. Okay, let me take a look. Took her person fled. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes. Yeah, conversion. Very good. Very good. Excellent job. That's right. Civil liability, indemnification. Now coming down to patron, this is where we'll borrow that template that we had up here. I don't think it would be negligence per se as a duty, but it would be the duty as to landowner, land occupier. And it would be the standard as to an invitee. And then, yeah, that's what I would say there. And then breach of the duty, risk versus utility, but for test, proximate cause foreseeability, which the foreseeability would go to the that up here, big foreseeability issue right here. Cinema had been aware of several previous attacks on its customers in the parking lot. Big word there, customers. That would be the invitee aspect. Parking lot at night during the past several years, but provided no lighting or security guard. Okay, so that also adds to the fact of their breach as well. So we have foreseeable. Then the intervening events though would be they're going to try to say that it's third-party criminality, but remember it's foreseeable. Okay. Yep, and then damages, general damages, special damages, and then run right through contributory negligence, last clear chance, comparative assumption. Throw in a quick little conclusion down here. Oh, we want to make sure too. We don't want to forget to throw in our joint and several liability aspect as well. Okay. Okay, and then bring that down. And I think we have this. Make sure we have all of our stuff here in place. Excellent. We can cut that out, and we got this. Let me put this on the single page here. Excellent. Okay. All right. This was very fun, very exciting, and an excellent opportunity to stretch our essay tactics and essay strategies. So, thank you for tuning in. I want to put a shout out to Chess Cruncher TV. Keep chess crunching, Chess Cruncher. I also want to put a shout out to my Amazon Kindle book, Battle Big Bad Baby Bar, Essay Basics. Again, thank you for tuning in, and God bless.